Hi friends, welcome back to Soil and Refuge. My name's Jen. If you're new here, welcome. If you're somebody that has been hanging out with me, welcome back. I'm so happy that you all are here. Today I just wanted to chat a little bit about sourdough. I already fed Mabel my starter and I'm going to be baking this evening, and so I am mixing her into a recipe, very easy, that I follow from Feasting from Home. I'll drop the link. I'm a very visual person and her instruction is so good. I was gifted a beautiful strong sourdough starter last October. So I am into my sourdough journey and I feel like I've learned so much. And initially what held me back was it felt really complicated. I have a very busy life. Like my days are jam-packed. And so sourdough is a commitment. You have to plan ahead. But what I have learned is two things. If you have a very strong starter, she's more forgiving, which is lovely. And the other thing is that it doesn't have to be complicated. I think that we can make it as complicated as we want to or as simple as we want to. And so I'm just going to walk through how I do my dough and sort of how long it takes me to get to actual baking time and how much time I'm actually working with the dough. You'll be surprised, it's really not that much. So I have poured out my starter into the bowl that I'm going to be mixing her into. You do need to use the scale. Some people eyeball it and that's awesome. I appreciate the organized and proficient nature of making sourdough. So I like the scale. I like knowing that my measurements are exact. You don't have to do that. I find that works well for me. So in here, I'm making 2 bowls. So I have 180 grams of starter. I'm going to add in 770 grams of warm water, not hot water, warm water. I'm gonna whisk it together. Okay. Sort of incorporate the starter with my water. Just get her dissolved as much as I can. So I feed Mabel 1 day a week. I feed her a 1:3:2 ratio of starter, flour, water. After she rises and she comes down, that's when I bake with her. And otherwise, she's in my refrigerator. So I work with her 1 day a week just because 2 loaves a week is plenty. And I've actually gone to baking every other week because it's so good. I was eating it all and that wasn't good. So Mabel lives in my refrigerator, so I don't have to feed her every day. It's not like constant attention. It's basically 2 days a week, but it's not even 2 days a week sounds like it's a lot, but it's not. It's like a few minutes one day, a little bit more the next day, and then you're baking. And so I'm going to add in a tablespoon of salt. I'm going to put her back on my scale and zero it out again so I can keep track of what my weights are. So when I mix up for my bread, I like my sourdough a bit denser and heartier. So I use bread flour, but I also use whole grains. And so I'm going to start with my bread flour. Basically, we're adding 1,040 grams of flour, which is roughly 8 cups. And so I'm gonna get started with my bread flour, and then sort of in the middle of that, I'm going to add a bit of whole wheat flour and 300 grams. It's just some. I'm not doing a whole wheat loaf, but I do like to add some in. I find that it just is a bit heartier, and again, I like that. Okay. So once we get to 1,040 grams, we just mix her in. Okay, so now once I have my starter, water, flour, and a little bit of salt, I'm just gonna mix it together, and it's gonna get very thick and shaggy, which is exactly what we want. I mentioned that it's a commitment to do this, but it doesn't have to take over all of your days. When I feed Mabel, it takes me 2 minutes, 3 minutes, less than 5 minutes to feed her. And then she rises all day. And then I work with her the next day, putting my ingredients together here It's just a couple minutes. And then the next step is where we're going to be working the dough a bit more. Initially, I have to work with her every half an hour, 45 minutes for a couple hours. So I just try to do it when I'm working on other things, whether I'm working on administrative stuff for the ranch, or maybe I'm doing laundry. I can just kind of work around whatever I have to do in life. And then basically she just sits and rises for a big chunk of the day or night, depending upon when you're baking. And then of course the baking at the end. So, you know, 2 days, it sounds like, oh gosh, it's a lot, but it really isn't. It's like a couple minutes here, a few minutes there. Like it really isn't that time laborious, really. It doesn't time vampire you like it sort of presents as it does, but it really doesn't. And people that have been doing it for a long time are able to like whip through this even faster than what I'm doing. So, okay. So I've got everything pretty incorporated. You'll see that she's very thick and shaggy. Like I'm not able to make her smooth right now. We're just trying to get the flour all worked in evenly. And then I'm gonna put a wet towel, damp towel over. And when I come back in a half an hour, you'll see that we're already gonna start building gluten, and that she'll be more easy to work with. And the more that we stretch and fold, she gets even better. Okay, so perfect. Okay, so then I like to just get a tea towel and dampen it. And then basically we're gonna cover her so she doesn't dry out. We wanna hold that moisture in and just let her rest a little bit. So 30 minutes, I'm gonna set a timer, and while she's hanging out, I'm gonna go switch laundry and answer a couple emails, and I'll be right back. Okay, friends, the timer went off. It's been a half an hour, and I'm gonna do my first set of stretch and folds. So basically we're taking this shaggy dough and we're gonna start helping the gluten build, which will actually mellow out the bread. It will mix in the flour really lovely, and then the actual sourdough will start to build. So you need to have like a cup with water or something so that you can keep your hand wet, because at this stage it's really sticky. So having water on your hand keeps it from sticking on you. The more you work with the dough, the less sticky that it becomes, but initially it's pretty sticky. And I'm just sort of like scraping around the bowl and then pulling up 2-3 fingers worth, pulling and stretching. And I'm gonna do this until the dough starts to feel firm, and then I'm gonna let her rest again. So I do this like 3 times, which means it's gonna take me about an hour and a half or so. But I don't just stand here for an hour and a half. Again, I do this when I know I'm gonna be working in the house and that it's easy for me to pop in for a couple minutes here and there. Just doing it around the other work that I have to do. A bit more water. I feel like some of it's real soft, but already I can feel that she's getting firmer. So I'll just do a couple more here, and then I'm gonna cover her back up. So this is where we are. It was really shaggy, not as shaggy now. We're starting to smooth out a little bit. Still pretty sticky, not as sticky. And now, because I can feel her tightening, I'm just gonna cover the dough back up and set my timer for another 30 minutes. Okay, friends, it's been another 30 minutes. This time I got my little bowl of water, so I don't have to put my back to you. Definitely smoothing out, not nearly as sticky as our last go. You can see she's pretty loosey-goosey right now, meaning I can pull pretty far up before I really even feel any kind of resistance. It's pretty warm here today. Feels humid too. My house is 74, so the dough will rise pretty quickly this afternoon. I have decided that after this series of stretch and folds, I'm just gonna let her rise, get a little bit shiny and smooth. It's going very well, not nearly as sticky. She's actually getting shiny and smoothing. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and cover and probably leave her for about 4 hours. I'll come back and check because it is warm today. The rise time is greatly affected by the temperature of your house. And so on cold days, it could take 10, 12 hours, maybe longer. Sometimes In the winter, I was doing this stage in the evening, and then I would just leave the dough out all night, and then I would bake early in the morning. But now that it's warming up, everything moves a lot faster, and so I'm gonna leave her for 4 hours. I'll pop back in and check, and if I'm pretty close to what I think I'm gonna be in the rising because of the temperatures, I'll be able to bake tonight in time for supper, which will be awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna head outside and get back to work, and then I will check back in about 4 hours from now. Okay, so I thought that we could make a rosemary garlic cheesy sourdough tonight. And I just harvested all of these garlic babies that are curing in our dry storage. So I thought maybe we'll just take one out of here and pop it in the bread for tonight. Grab some fresh rosemary to go with the garlic. So beautiful. And it smells so amazing. Perfect. Okay friends, it's been about 4 hours, just about 4 hours, and I think she's ready. So some of the things that I look at are the jiggle test. The jiggle, she's got some air in here that I'm just gonna pop. And then the way that I can tell if she's proofed is by just getting flour on my pinky and dipping it in here. What I'm looking for is to see when I push in, does it stay in or does it slowly come back? And what I'm seeing, she's slowly coming back. So watch right here. I'll see if I can show you better. See how she's springing back and jiggle. So 75 in my house it turned out to be, and 4 hours is like, that's excellent. That worked really well for us. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna do our last stretch of folds, and I'm going to, I think this is called an accordion fold, where we're just gonna like free her from the side here. I am actually gonna put a little bit more water. Not a lot. I don't wanna add hydration, but she's still a little sticky underneath there. And what we're gonna do is just start building up the tension again. So I think this is called an accordion fold. But basically you just let it stretch out based on the weight of the dough, and then bring it down, spin it, give it a second to rest, and pick her up again. I like to just pop the little air bubbles in there. They pop up, it's no big deal. Okay, then I'm gonna put my damp tea towel back over and let her sit for about 20 minutes. And then we'll do our first shaping. Okay, so while the dough is resting, here's the garlic that we harvested. I roasted it and I chopped up some fresh rosemary. I'm just gonna get this ready. I haven't done this before. This is new. Oh my gosh, I wish you could smell this. Ooh, that smells so amazing. Oh my gosh. So I'm basically just squeezing out the roasted cloves into a bowl. And I think what I'm gonna do is just mash them, and then I can sort of like drop them in chunks on the bread, is my thought anyway. That smells amazing. That smells really good. That is beautiful. Yep, that's lovely. So I think what I could even do maybe is just sort of spread it and then drizzle the cheese and rosemary on top of it. Holy cow. All right, friends. Perfect. Looks pretty good. Okay. So I made enough for 2, so I'm just gonna cut it in half. If I wanted it to be exact, I could measure, but I'm not too concerned about that. We'll just get them kind of close. Light. Okay, wonderful. So I'm doing one just regular, no inclusions. So I'm just sort of doing in a circular motion to build up the tension gently so that it pulls tension but it doesn't rip. And then this one, we're gonna add the inclusions on. Okay, that's pretty awesome. It just smells amazing. This is gonna be so good. Gosh, looks pretty good. Again, this just builds the tension, so hopefully she'll have a nice rise when she bakes. Okay. We need to build up the tension on this as well. Okay, so these are gonna go into the refrigerator for an hour and then they'll be ready to bake. So now we're ready to bake. I preheated my oven along with my Dutch oven so that once the dough goes in, it's already hot and ready to start baking. And then I'm just gonna score so that it's got garlic and rosemary and cheese. It just smells amazing. So good. Okay, so just like that, they're in the oven. They bake at 500 for 25 minutes, and then I'm gonna turn the temp down to 450, and they're gonna cook for another 15 or bake. And that's it. So in the meantime, I'll just clean up my mess. Okay, so I just turned the oven down to 450. We're gonna take off the tops. Ooh, beautiful. And then without the tops, oh, beautiful. They go back in for 15 minutes at 450 and then they'll be all done. All right, friends, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me for my sourdough process, sharing feeding Mabel in a previous video to what it looks like to actually create the dough and go through that whole thing, and also including inclusions. And I hope that if you're somebody that has been thinking about doing sourdough, but you've been a little put off by thinking it's gonna like time vampire you, I hope that my video sort of lets you know, I guess, that it doesn't have to be that way. Yes, it's a 2-day process, but it's not like all 2 days. You're in and out, and honestly, day one feeding her, if you bake the next day, is like 2 to 3 minutes. It's easy breezy. The rest of it really is on bake day. Baking is just like baking any other loaf, but to get to that point, you know, a couple minutes to mix up the dough, and then it's a matter of those stretch and folds at the beginning, and then letting it rest for several hours based on the temperature, and then you're baking. So yeah. So I just, I love sourdough so much, and I'm enjoying this process so much. And I just hope that if you're somebody that has been thinking about it, maybe you'll give it a go. Big tip, if you can find an established starter already, puts you way ahead because you're already starting with a strong base, which is always more forgiving. All right, friends, well, I'm so grateful for our time together. Thanks for hanging out with me. May your day be blessed. Until we meet again. Thanks, everyone. If you like this content, please subscribe and give me a like. The interaction helps grow my page, and I'd be so grateful for that.